What happens when the world tells you this is not your place? What do you do when tradition, neighbors, and even your own relatives whisper in your ear, "Stay in your lane. Tout, trust the line. It is not meant for people like you." Most people bow their heads. They stay inside the cage that society has built for them. They bury their dreams before they even breathe life into them. But once in a while, there comes someone who simply refuses to listen. Someone who dares to walk forward, even when every step feels heavy with resistance. Someone who decides that their life will not be a copy of yesterday's expectations, but a spark that lights tomorrow. A young girl born in a time when India expected women to remain in the background, to play supporting roles, never to step into the front line of authority. Yet, she broke tradition, faced ridicule, and walked into a field where no woman had ever set foot before her. Her name is Kiran Bedi, the first woman officer in the Indian police service. And her story is not just about wearing a uniform. It is about breaking walls, the walls of doubt, of prejudice, of this is not possible. It is about showing millions of Indian women that, yes, it is possible. And someone must be the first. 1. The beginning of defiance. Approx. 250 words. To understand the power of Kiran's story, we must first return to the India of the 1960s. It was a country still finding its voice after independence, but for women, the voice was often silenced. Young girls were expected to study only enough to appear respectable, then marry and dedicate their lives to home and family. A woman's dreams were meant to fit inside four walls, but Kiran was different. Even as a young girl, she displayed a spirit of challenge. She loved sports, not just watching them, but playing, sweating, competing. She picked up a tennis racket at a time when very few girls were seen on the courts. She practiced hard, and she won championships. Her victories were not celebrated by everyone. Many around her criticized. Why is a girl wasting her time on sports? She should focus on preparing for marriage. But Kiran had already begun to train the muscle that would define her life. The ability to not let other people's opinions define her path. Every time she walked onto the tennis court, every time she swung her racket against expectations, she was building more than athletic skill. She was building courage. She was proving, first to herself, then to others, that limits are not natural. Limits are designed by society, and they can be redesigned by choice. This defiance, this early decision to live differently, planted the seed for what was to come. And soon, the seed would grow into a dream so audacious that the entire nation would notice. 2. The impossible dream. As Kiran grew older, her vision grew sharper. Tennis had given her confidence, but she wanted more. She wanted to serve to protect, to lead. And her eyes turned toward one of the most challenging careers in India, the Indian Police Service. At that time, the very idea of a woman in uniform was unthinkable. The ICE was a fortress of men. It was seen as dangerous, demanding, and too harsh for women. The voices around her became louder. Don't be foolish. Women, don't join the police. You'll never make it. Why humiliate yourself trying? But Kiran's dream was not a balloon that could be punctured by words. It was a flame. And the more people tried to blow it out, the brighter it burned. She trained relentlessly. She studied with a single-minded focus. She pushed her body to its limits, running, exercising, strengthening herself. She prepared not only her mind, but her spirit for the battles ahead. In 1972, history was written. Kiran Bedi cleared the civil services exam and became the first woman officer in the Indian Police Service. It was a moment of pride, but also the beginning of a storm. The newspapers carried her story, yet the whispers didn't stop. Some said, she won't last. The system will break her. Others predicted, she will give up when the pressure becomes too much. But Kiran was not here to prove them wrong. She was here to prove herself right. Being the first is never about celebration alone. It is about struggle. Kiran stepped into a world designed by men, for men, with no space for a woman. Colleagues doubted her. Society judged her. Criminals underestimated her. Some mocked her openly. But instead of bending, she stood taller. She wore her uniform not as a costume, but as a declaration. I belong here, and I will serve with dignity. One of her most famous early postings was as Deputy Commissioner of Police in Delhi during the 1982 Asian Games. The city was chaotic. Traffic was a nightmare, and powerful people parked their cars wherever they pleased. Most officers would have turned a blind eye, but not Kiran. She introduced strict discipline. She brought in cranes to tow away wrongly parked cars, and it didn't matter if the car belonged to a common man or a politician. Soon the media gave her a nickname, Kiran Bedi. Some laughed at it. But for millions of ordinary Indians, it became a symbol. It said, the law is above everyone. Justice does not bow to power. And it showed something even more radical. A woman could enforce the law with firmness and fairness without fear. Each challenge she faced was like another test, another stone thrown at her path. But instead of stumbling, she used those stones to build her reputation. Slowly, steadily, Kiran was not just surviving in the IPS, she was redefining it. For more than a job, a mission for many, wearing the uniform is about power. For Kiran, it was about responsibility. She never saw her badge as a ticket to authority. She saw it as a tool for service. Where others followed routines, she asked questions. Where others were satisfied with "this is how it's always been done," she challenged. "But is this the best we can do?" Her work in prisons became legendary. In Tihar jail, once a symbol of neglect, violence, and hopelessness, she brought reform. She introduced yoga sessions, meditation, literacy programs, and vocational training. For the first time, inmates were not treated just as criminals, but as human beings with the potential to change. Many resisted her. Critics called her methods soft. Some argued a jail should punish, not reform. But Kiran believed something deeper. A society is only as safe as its ability to heal its broken parts. She carried this spirit into every posting, whether managing riots, handling community disputes, or policing streets. She was firm, yes, but always with a vision: to make the system not just work, but work with humanity. Her approach was not perfect. It was controversial, debated, even resisted. But it was alive. It was fresh. And slowly, people began to see her not just as an officer, but as a reformer. Someone who wanted to leave the world better than she found it. 5. The lesson. What does Kiran Bedi's story really teach us? Beyond the headlines, the medals, the controversies, what is the essence? Psychologists call it self-efficacy, the belief that you have the ability to act and shape your destiny. When you carry this belief, you begin to unlock reservoirs of strength you didn't know existed. Kiran embodied this truth. She didn't wait for society to grant her permission. She granted it to herself. She believed in her capacity to act, and through that belief, she changed not just her life, but the lives of many who came after. There is a ripple effect to courage. When one person breaks a barrier, the barrier weakens for everyone else. Before Kiran, the police service was a wall with no doors for women. After Kiran, the wall had cracks, and through those cracks, many others entered. This is the lesson. Your fight is never just your fight. When you choose to persist, to resist, to stand tall, you are not only lifting yourself, you are lifting the possibilities of those who will follow. Kiran Bedi's life is not a fairy tale of ease. It is a parable of grit. It reminds us that barriers are not permanent, that walls are not eternal, and that courage, even when lonely, can open roads for generations. 6. A modern parable. Think of Kiran Bedi's journey not just as history, but as a parable, a living metaphor for what it means to challenge the impossible. Imagine a vast stone wall towering over the heads of countless women. Generations stood before it, staring up, whispering, "This wall was built to keep us out." Most turned away, resigned. Some pressed their palms against the cold surface, sighed, and said, "Maybe someday." But one woman refused to leave. She placed her hands on the stone, searching for cracks. She slipped, she fell, she bled, yet she climbed. People mocked her. Some pitied her. Many shook their heads. But slowly, with each bruise, each setback, each step, she rose. And when she finally reached the top, she did not sit there alone in triumph. She turned back. She called out to the others, "Look, there is a way." That woman was Kiran Bedi, and the wall was not just about the police. It was about every profession, every space where women had been told, "You cannot." Her climb showed, yes, you can. The parable is clear. When you break one wall, you do not just change your own life. You redraw the map for everyone who comes after you. Now, pause for a moment and look inward. What is your wall? For some, it is poverty. For others, it is the weight of family expectations. For many, it is the voice inside their own head whispering, "You are not good enough." But walls are deceptive. They look solid, but they are not eternal. Every wall carries cracks. Every barrier carries weak points. And the moment you decide to keep climbing, not just once, not just twice, but consistently, you discover that the wall begins to crumble. Kiran Bedi's story is not an invitation to become a police officer. It is an invitation to believe. To believe that you are not defined by the role society hands you. To believe that courage is not about being fearless, but about walking forward even when you are afraid. Her story whispers, your struggle matters. Your persistence counts. And your climb will never just be yours. It will be a ladder for someone else. So I ask you, will you stand before your wall forever, or will you climb? Be the first in your family. Be the first in your street. Be the first in your village to break the pattern, to rise above the expected, to step into a destiny no one thought possible. Remember, Kiran Bedi was not born extraordinary. She became extraordinary because she refused to stop. And that choice is available to you right here, right now. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs courage today. Subscribe to Mindshift Stories for more modern parables that shift the way we see life, drawn from the journeys of real people. And above all, never forget, when you stand firm, you do not only change your own destiny, you light the path for generations after you. Kiran Bedi entered the police as one woman against the tide. She left as a symbol that tides can be turned. And maybe, just maybe, the tide in your own life is waiting for you, too. If only you refuse to stop climbing.